I'm Annie Studebaker, and I bring to you an abundance of knowledge from our South Texas rural communities. Follow me as I take you on a journey of inspiration and insight that will offer a deeper connection with people and businesses.
In the center of Millet, Texas, which is a small community, stands a very productive olive farm called Anderson Ranch. It's owned by David and Beverly Anderson. This wonderful land with its rusty, rich, and flaky soil has become the home of many olive trees.
Tell me about your orchard here and what kind of trees do you have?
These are Italian trees, and we got them in 1997, and when they came from Italy, they came in just cardboard boxes, and they were bare root, and they were about not quite 2 feet tall.
They ordered various types of olive trees from Italy and set forth to focus on what is now Anderson Ranch, a productive and successful olive production business. It wasn't until David and Beverly read an article in the local newspaper that they were encouraged to start an olive farm. Other crops had been considered, but the fact that they had the perfect soil and weather to grow these olives made it the ideal crop.
And so we went to that meeting, and when we got to the meeting, we found out that the area that we were in is where they had been studying, and they thought that the olives would do good. And so we decided that we would try it on a pioneering basis, because no one was doing it and everything. So we came home and got this plot ready. This is 1 acre of land right here. And at that time, there was not the high density orchards. These are the old style trees that have to be planted like 15 feet apart and then 20 feet across the rows, and so they take a lot more room to plant these trees, and they grow really big. But these trees cannot be mechanically harvested. You have to harvest them by hand, and that means you putting a drop cloth down and climbing the ladders and raking each limb like this to get the olives off, and it's very labor intensive. And some of these trees, you know, get to be 20 feet tall or more. We've cut these back, but they were as much as 20 feet tall, so it got kind of pretty dangerous to get up on the ladders and be raking them off.
For thousands of years, the olive branch has been a sign of peace and goodwill. This may be partly due to the fact that in early cultivation of the olive, it took decades to bear fruit for harvest, and therefore it was believed that anyone who had an olive grove was expecting a long and peaceful life. Let's talk briefly about the nutritional value of an olive. It contains vitamin A, E, D, and K, and antioxidants. Not only does it reduce your LDL cholesterol, which is the bad one, but it raises your HDL cholesterol, which is the good one. It's also good for your hair, nails, and skin. I better go stock up on my pantry with olive oil.
Well, they bloom by the second week of March. And the inflorescence come on a little bit sooner than that, little buds. Then the blooms come on. And after the blooms set, well, you'd have a little tiny olive on where that bloom was. So by April, you can see what's going to be the olive.
If it hasn't gotten too hot.
And then the olives grow, of course, through the summer. And in September, they start turning from green. They'll start turning a purple color and go to black. A green olive is a green olive, and a black olive is a ripe olive. You see the green and the black in the store? It's not too different. It's the one is not ripe, the other one is ripe. And so the ideal time for harvesting the olives for oil is to harvest them just as they're turning. So you have some greens and some blacks, and the majority of them kind of that in between, kind of a purple color. If you have more green olives in there, you have more of a green colored and more of a sharp taste in the oil.
Fruity taste.
If you harvest the oil later on when the olives are more black and more ripe, you get more of a mellow and smooth yellow colored oil. So you can get the type of oil you want by the timing your harvest.
We took a little walk not far from the orchard and learned another interesting fact about the Andersons. Not only had they become masters for growing olive trees, but they wanted to learn more about the process of olive oil production, so they purchased an Italian olive oil extractor that would turn their olives into high-quality olive oil. Unfortunately, since I do not parlare Italiano, I could not tell you what those labels said. Beverly gave us a brief description of the extractor machine called olerina. It begins with crushing the olives to release the oil trapped inside. Once that is complete, the olive oil is bottled and packed for distribution. Olive wood has great texture, coloring, and design, and is strong enough to make beautiful bowls and cutting boards that would last a long time. This interesting couple takes great pride of their accomplishments and have many photographs to prove it. We stood there and glanced through these pictures, and I could see that they had put their hearts and souls into their business in order to accomplish what they had set out to do. It was a joyous and memorable time with friends and family, whom with their support participated with the planting and harvesting during the start of their business. Then we were off to tea time. Beverly fixed hot tea made from olive leaves. We sat there and enjoyed the breeze while she explained more about the olive production.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
We're visiting the Texas Olive Ranch located between Carrizo Springs and Asherton. This is where we will find a variety of olive trees that will ultimately produce high-quality olive oil. We will soon take you on a tour that will demonstrate the process for making olive oil using a mechanical, state-of-the-art fruit press, which extracts and separates the olive oil very efficiently.
I am Karen Lee, and I do marketing and branding for Texas Olive Ranch.
There are a variety of olive trees that grow well in Texas due to the perfect weather and soil conditions. Texas Olive Ranch has a variety of olive trees and is currently growing and pressing olive oil. The olive harvest is the first step to making olive oil. Once the olives have been harvested, the clock starts ticking. They must be brought to an olive mill as soon as possible or the acidity level will be too high, jeopardizing its flavor. The olives are soon transferred to a special container and made ready for the extraction process. After being brought to the mill, the olives are picked through and sorted. Then they're thoroughly rinsed by running them through a cleaner which removes dirt, twigs, and leaves. The next step is the mill. This is where the olives are turned into a paste. After being mixed, the olive paste is put under pressure to extract the liquid oil along with water from the fruit, leaving the paste behind. The olive oil is then separated from the water, leaving behind 100% virgin olive oil, which will then be bottled and labeled.
Well, we do 3 kinds of 100% varietal extra virgin olive oil. And that means that from the 3 different kinds of olives that we grow in our orchard, we press each one separately, and the only thing we put in the bottle is 100% Texas grown 100% varietal extra virgin olive oil. We do a roasted garlic infusion, we do a mesquite smoke infusion, we do orange, lemon, basil, and we have another one that's a cracked pepper and chipotle infusion, which we call rattlesnake oil. So those are all real fun, and you can come to the farmer's market and taste everything, and that's how you know if you like it.
Traditional light bulbs actually generate 9 times more heat than light. Let's switch to Energy Star light bulbs and stop burning through cash. Saving energy saves you money.
Today, we will be visiting a very interesting couple. They have an earthworm farm. They not only sell the worms, but they also harvest the organic material these earthworms produce and create an all-natural fertilizer in a solid and liquid form, which is great for organic home gardens and large-scale producers.
My name is Paul Brown, and it's my wife, Becky.
Hi.
The name of our business is Wranglers of Millet. We raise earthworms, and mainly we raise the earthworms for the castings, which is the worm manure, and for the vermicompost, which we sell to the general public for gardens and their yards and stuff like that. We also produce for the farmers mainly is worm casting tea, and it is used as a foliar feed for peanuts, or for any crop for that matter, but we mainly use it on peanuts on our farm, which is Brown and Wilmot Farm. And it helps stop the funguses that we have in the peanuts, that we found it to stop the fungus. We don't have to spend as much money on the fungicides to reduce the fungus in our peanuts. It also helps with the growth of the peanuts, and for the production of the peanuts, it has a higher production rate. When we get ready to start working the worms, or actually we're rebedding and feeding them, we start off with I've got all the worms right now in little 3-gallon black buckets. And they got little holes on the side of the bucket for air holes, and then we have a shower cap that goes over the top of them so that it actually creates a terrarium. Well, I take the lid off of that, I run it through a conveyor, and the conveyor feeds the machine, the separator. When it separates the worm, it separates the castings, the earthworm casting from the vermicompost, and then at the end of it, it divides the large chunks of debris that came through the 1/4-inch screen and the worms to one side and the big debris to the other side. These worms I will take back inside, and I will divide them back. We dump about 3 buckets per pail to catch. On the catch end of this machine, I will take it back and divide it into 3 and put it in 3 separate buckets, just like what they came out of. I'll add compost back into it, sprinkle it, put the shower cap back on it, and put it back on the pallet. And we do this every 3 to 5 weeks, depending on how bad the worms, if they really start moving. If the worms try coming out of those buckets, that means they're really hungry and they need to be fed pretty quick. So that's a pretty good telltale sign, and I try to beat them at that. I don't like to lose the worms on the concrete floor, because as soon as they hit a concrete floor, they look like a dried up pretzel. They don't last very long on the concrete. The feed that we put with the compost is a grain mixture that comes up with 17% protein. It has wheat and rye, milo, oats into the mix. It's just a variety of grains. It really doesn't matter which ones you use, but they recommend not doing all of one kind. So we do a blend of those with soybean meal that brings it up to 17%. And it seems like if it's any hotter than that, it goes through a heat and it'll actually kill the worms in the buckets. so you can't get it over 17%.
Protein.
Protein, 17% protein, right.
And we go to the local schools and do labs with the worms. The kids are always fun. They like to look at the worms and find they're actually cocoons. They're actually cocoons. They encapsulate 2 to 5 little bitty transparent thread-like worms, and it's really neat for the kids to find those and look at them. And we talk about being stewards of the earth and what compost does and who decomposers are and all those neat things. And so it's been a real neat venue for us to do this.
Did you know that earthworms are heartless? No, really, they have no heart. I used to know someone like that, but I won't go there. Anyway, these worms have an organ known as the aortic arch that carries out functions of the heart. And that's not all. They have no lungs, so they breathe through their skin. Another interesting fact is that the earthworms have the ability to reproduce their lost segments. That's crazy.
I really wanted to touch these worms, so I asked Becky if it was safe. Well, it definitely was safe, but that little worm was not about to make it easy for me. I didn't want to hurt it, so I pulled it gently, and there it was, one fat, happy worm.
Open your fingers like a rake and flip that flick that material up and he'll let go. Yeah, just stick your hand in there and flip this up and they'll let go. Oh my goodness, look at that. They're just not, they don't make cocoons until they're hungry and they're moving around that bucket and they're interacting with one another.
How long did you start this? How long ago?
Oh, what's it been, about 5 years?
Wow, that's really good. And these you save, right?
Yes, and we'll rebed them in fresh composted materials and then let them go for another 4 or 5 weeks.
But the worm eggs we use, that's how we expand, because we'll actually put about 3 or 4 of these buckets with the eggs. Whenever we have a lot of eggs, we'll fill them in there and we'll put them in a little incubator. And all it does is keep it around 80 degrees. They say recommend around 80 degrees for these babies. We hatch them and then we put them in another bucket, and usually in about 2 weeks, or 2 week intervals. Then we do it again in the next 2 weeks. We divide it, put it in 2 buckets. And then 2 weeks after that, we put it in 4 buckets. And 2 weeks after that, we put it in 8 buckets. And we grow these worms, and they'll have, if they have the 20 or 30 eggs per 100 gram ounce, we will have close to 800 worms in each one of those buckets that are growing. And when they get big enough to run through this machine and not fall out through the little holes, then we put about what was equivalent to 1/4 pound of the worms in each bucket. And on the big worms, it's about 800 worms to a pound. On the little worms, it takes about 1,200 to 1,400 on the little what we call the red wiggler.
Yes.
These are all the large. These are African night crawlers. These bigger ones we're seeing right here. And I'm trying to get, they're new to me. I haven't done much work with them. I have with the red wigglers, that's all we started with. But now we're into the European and African night crawlers. And the only reason I wanted to go with larger worms is a lot of people want to have fishing worms. In this part of the world, they don't know how to use a red wiggler to catch a fish. They want a huge worm to catch a big fish.
Come here.
I love you, Dad.
To Today we will visit Hilltop Gardens in Lyford, Texas. It offers one of the largest collections of aloe species, healing gardens, organic farm production, a bed and breakfast, and much, much more. The South Texas climate makes the ideal place for aloe vera to grow. Visitors will enjoy a tour of the gardens, which are displayed in a beautiful tropical setting that will surprise and impress garden lovers as well as the casual visitor. Hilltop Gardens was first planted with aloe in 1939. Lee Ewald and her husband Sherman Ewald pioneered in its commercial production in the Rio Grande Valley. Assisted by their daughter, chemist Phyllis Schmidt, they developed cosmetics using aloe vera gel. Hilltop Gardens is part of a larger international corporation called EcoNet, in which William Lee serves as chairman. Their sustainable farming and gardening methods reflect their corporate philosophy, which is to bring the best of nature to humankind.
Tell me about the different types of gardens you have here.
Well, we started in on a very ambitious plan a couple of years ago to build botanical gardens here at Hilltop Gardens. For the public. Our company is a wellness company. We grow aloe vera because it is a medicinal plant and it has such wonderful health benefits for everyone. And we wanted a place that would reflect that philosophy of bringing the best of nature to mankind. And this is an extension of that, or an expression of that philosophy.
Walking through the garden's pathways, enjoying the tropical feel to this magnificent ambiance, connecting with the environment through the flowers, the exotic plants, and the wonderful sounds of nature invigorated my senses. The first stop was the Ewald House Visitor Center. This is where we all grouped before the actual tour through the gardens. We watched a short video about the history of Hilltop Gardens and what they offer. In this same building was a gift shop. It had aloe products, jewelry, toys, and much, much more. By looking at their products, I knew that my tour would not be completed without a visit to the gift shop, so I saved it for last. The sensory garden focuses on stimulating different senses. The garden's connecting pathways led us to various sections that displayed numerous plants and flowers, all in harmony with similar and contrasting textures and colors that stimulate the sense of sight. We followed a series of connecting pathways and arrived at the Memorial Aloe Garden. At the entrance of this garden is a bust of Yun-Ho Lee, father of Chairman William Lee, whose vision started with the use of aloe for healing purposes. An amazing sight with a great variety of aloe plants. Immediately upon entering the healing garden, I felt peace and tranquility. The garden's main focus is on healing properties of plants and education about them. Its calming and soothing effect, in rhythm with the sounds of nature, is one great way to begin the healing process. Paul and I sat by the reflecting pool and listened to the birds calling from the canopy of trees.
The healing garden has several wonderful components to the garden design, and the reflecting pool here is a big part of that. It's a cooling and calming thing. The reflection of the sky and the trees in it, again, is one of the things that stimulates our senses and stimulates the wonderful parts of healing within our bodies. Fragrance is an incredible sense that humans have. It evokes memories, it evokes wonderful thoughts. One of our great plants in this garden is the reseda. It's a North American native. It is more common in the California area. a wonderfully fragrant plant. Those little tiny flowers. After the flowers are pollinated, then we get the berries that turn red, and so it's a great plant. It's planted here with the Hawaiian snow bush, which adds color and interest to the planting. And the little tree in the center is another one we're waiting on. It's one of the newer plantings here at Hilltop Gardens. It's the lang lang tree. The flower from the lang lang tree is the plant that they use to make Chanel No. 5.
Really? How interesting.
And it's known all over the world as a very exotic fragrance.
Lang lang tree. Interesting. Tell me about this beautiful aloe vera gardens.
Again, aloe vera is what Hilltop Gardens is all about, what the EcoNet is all about. And we have built this garden as an expression of our desire to bring the best of nature to humankind. And it will, upon completion, we'll have a collection of over 200 aloe species. There's somewhere in the range of 300 plus species of aloe in the world, and we're aiming at having at least 200 here at Hilltop Gardens. We have been working with a grower in South Africa to get all of those different species that are not available on the common market, and we're bringing them here to the Rio Grande Valley. This aloe plant is about 3 years old, and you can see one of the offsets there, one of the pups down at the very bottom here on this side.
This?
Yeah, that's a brand new plant coming off of the roots.
So you can move it and transplant it?
You sure can. Once it gets about a third of the size of the mature plant, it's very easily taken off. And it does that very easily within a year's time.
So you get a knife and you just cut the bottom?
Right, we'll dig out a little bit so that we can get a little closer to the main stem of the plant, the root system where it all comes together there, and take the plant off with a nice stem of its own.
Okay, interesting. Very, very nice.
The last garden we looked at was a children's garden, which was carefully designed for interactive participation. The garden features a fountain which flows into a small stream, ultimately reaching its final destination, a beautiful pond made out of rock surrounded by plants, as well as a palm forest to run through. There's a sand play area with play equipment and stepping stones, as well as 2 types of labyrinth. Raised beds set up with irrigation lines give the children an opportunity to participate and learn hands-on about the planting process. The last area that I visited was a story tree. A beautiful oak tree provided shade over a deck used for children to sit and listen to story time. Like I mentioned before, this tour would not be complete without a trip to the gift shop, so that's exactly what I did. I purchased some aloe products and a toy for my son, and off I was to the register where they had the jewelry display. What a great tour, one that revitalized my mind, body, and spirit. This brings us to the end of our show. We hope you have enjoyed this interesting and educational journey of unique farms and gardens. Who would have ever thought that earthworms could be so beneficial to our soil? And don't you think it's amazing that olive oil is bottled raw? Also, I never dreamed that I could feel peace and tranquility by walking through a garden. Join us next time as we visit interesting places and people in our South Texas backroads.